You know, in the world of pharmaceuticals, the single most important ingredient is often the one we take for granted, water. But we're not talking about just any water. Oh no. This is water that has been purified to a level that is almost mind-bogglingly clean. And the tech that gets us there? It's a true masterpiece of engineering. So let's get into it. Now, this isn't some crazy hypothetical. This is a real-world, everyday risk for pharmaceutical companies. Just one tiny, stray ion or a single bacterium can completely contaminate a massive production run. And when that happens, they have to throw out millions of dollars worth of product. The stakes, both financially and for patient safety, are just astronomical, which is why the industry relies on an ultimate gatekeeper for purity.
And this gatekeeper technology has totally changed the game for water purification. It's a huge shift away from the old brute force energy-guzzling methods to something way more clever and efficient.
For decades, the gold standard was distillation. You basically boil colossal amounts of water and then collect the pure steam. It works for sure, but man, is it an energy hog with a massive footprint. But as you can see here, reverse osmosis is a totally different animal. It uses pressure, not heat, which makes it incredibly more efficient. This changes what allows for something the industry calls cold water for injection, or cold WFI. Being able to produce that super pure water without boiling it, that's a huge win for sustainability.
Okay, so how does reverse osmosis, we'll call it RO, actually work? Well, to really get it, you have to understand that the engineers who designed this had to literally go to war with a basic law of physics. So here's how it works in nature. If you've got a membrane with salty water on one side and pure water on the other, the pure water will naturally flow into the salty side. It's trying to dilute it and create a balance. That's osmosis. It's just nature trying to even things out. But for purification, we need to do the exact opposite. And this is how we do it. We don't just ask nicely, we use brute force. We use powerful pumps to create insane amounts of pressure. We're talking up to 1,200 pounds per square inch on the dirty side of the water. That incredible force is what it takes to overpower osmosis and literally shove water molecules backward, completely against their natural instinct. The real heart of the whole system is the semi-permeable membrane. And the absolute best way to picture it, it's like a molecular sieve. It's got these pores that are so unbelievably tiny that they can block 99.9% of all the dissolved salts, bacteria, you name it, while only letting the pure H2O molecules squeeze through.
So it all boils down to a pretty straightforward three-step dance. First, you apply that massive pressure. Second, the pressure forces the pure water molecules through that molecular sieve. And third, this splits the flow into two separate streams. You get the pure water, which is called permeate, and then all the gunk that's left behind, which we call reject or brine.
Now, as powerful as this technology is, there's a pretty major catch. An RO membrane is an absolute superstar at what it does, but it's also incredibly sensitive. You could even say it has some very specific demands. I love this quote because it perfectly nails the reality of these systems. You have to treat the membrane perfectly. If the water you're feeding it isn't prepared just right, that's a process called pretreatment, its super delicate surface gets clogged up with mineral scale or gunk. That's called fouling, and it can completely wreck a very expensive membrane in just a matter of days. So this brings us to the system's two main weaknesses. First, as we said, is its vulnerability to fouling and scaling. This makes pretreatment with things like water softeners or carbon filters completely non-negotiable. The second weakness? Well, the membrane can't stop everything. Really tiny dissolved gases like carbon dioxide can sneak right through along with the pure water. So, how do you deal with that to get to the absolute peak of purity? Well, you give our Diva a partner. In the US and other places with tight regulations, RO systems are almost always paired up with another technology called Continuous Electrode Ionization, or CED. This system basically uses electricity to give the water a final polish, zapping any of those last stray ions and dissolved gases that the RO membrane missed. And what do you get when this power couple works together? Water that is so ridiculously pure that it's actually a terrible conductor of electricity. We measure this purity as resistivity, and the theoretical max is 18.2 megaohms centimeter. That is the benchmark for ultra-pure water, and it's only possible because these two technologies are working in perfect sync. But of course, the technology is not standing still. Not by a long shot. We're actually entering a really exciting new era where material science and digital tools are making these systems tougher, smarter, and way more reliable. The next massive leap forward in membrane tech is coming from a material that honestly sounds like it's from a sci-fi movie: graphene.
Its layer of carbon that's only a single atom thick, and it's being built into membranes to create something far, far better than what we have today.
So what makes graphene such a total game changer? Well, because it's so thin, more water can get through with less pressure, which saves a ton of energy. It's also incredibly strong, so the membranes just last longer. And maybe the best part, its unique surface is extremely resistant to fouling. It basically solves the whole Diva problem, which makes maintenance easier and the entire system way more robust.
Okay, now let's switch gears for a second. Especially if you're operating in the United States, getting the water pure is really only half the battle. Regulatory bodies like the FDA demand that you prove it over and over again. They care a lot about the data. And this is where that digital revolution really kicks in. The new industry standard is all about real-time monitoring with online sensors. That old way of taking a sample and walking it over to a lab, that's out. Everything is digital now, and all the data has to follow what are called the ALCOA plus principles. That means the data has to be attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. It's a framework that guarantees the integrity of your data for the regulators.
All right, so knowing all of this, how do you actually keep these super complex systems running perfectly day in and day out? Well, it all comes down to a consistent daily playbook that is all about one thing: protecting that sensitive membrane.
And it breaks down into a really simple daily checklist. First, check your softeners. You have to prevent that mineral scale from building up. Second, monitor your carbon filters, because even a little bit of chlorine will absolutely shred an RO membrane. Third, keep a close eye on your pressure readings. If the pressure difference between the inlet and the outlet starts to grow, that is your first warning sign that fouling is beginning. And finally, regularly calibrate your sensors to make sure all that critical digital data is dead-on accurate.
So why does this daily routine matter so much? Because it's what directly prevents those million-dollar batch failures. It helps your facility run more efficiently, pushing you towards big sustainability goals like zero liquid discharge, where you recycle as much water as you possibly can. And critically, it's what keeps you in compliance with those super strict regulatory demands.
When you look at their incredible efficiency, their smaller footprint, and their ability to produce that cold WFI, it's pretty clear that these advanced membrane systems are quickly becoming the new global standard. And that leads to a really interesting final question. Are we watching the final chapter for the old, energy-guzzling distillation stills that pretty much ran the show for the last 100 years? Let me know what you think.